Tom Ross on the left, it's Benjamin Ball on your right. Both these players 8-1. That's how we're going to kick off day number 2 of competition here from St. Louis at SCG Live. Hashtag SCGSTL for your tweets all weekend long, as the boss is going to start off with a Gataxian Probe. He'll see exactly what Ball is working with here. He's got a Brainstorm, a Ponder, a Pyroblast, a Jace, a Batterskull, a Caracas, and a Flooded Strand. It's nonsense for this matchup.
This is a very soft hand here for Ball. No removal, no lock piece. The mana's not set up very well. The Batterskull's in the opening hand. Something I do like for Ball in this matchup is he has Stoneforge Mystic. I'm not a big fan of Stoneforge Mystic and Miracles, to be honest, but Umezawa's Jitte is another way to end the game against Infect, and then also a way to answer Inkmoth Nexus.
Here's a Brainstorm from Ross. He'll draw 3 cards, have to put 2 back, of course. Misty Rainforest, Verdant Catacombs among the cards that he's picked up here. Ball's deck list a little bit different. He's taking a much more aggressive approach. You mentioned the Stoneforge Mystics in the main deck. There are 3 of those. Also 3 copies of Monastery Mentor and 2 copies of Vendilion Click. So he's looking to beat down. Some players opt for almost no creatures, just a couple copies of Entreat the Angels and some Jaces to get the win.
And I wonder if this is just a concession to time. The builds with creatures, especially Monastery Mentor, capable of killing much faster than builds that are leaning simply on a couple copies of Entreat the Angels. And in a long tournament where time is a concern, there's some merit to playing with just more creatures to end the game faster.
Mentor is certainly gaining in popularity in Miracles as well. Combines well with basically everything the deck does, but it's kind of a hyper combo with Sensei's Divining Top.
You see Tom now main phasing this Brainstorm in an effort to play around the Pyroblast in Ball's hand.
Force of Will to draw there for Ball. There is a Flooded Strand. He'll fall down to 19. See what land Benjamin wants to get. He's pretty free to search up non-basics in the matchup.
Not 100% free, as Ross has a couple copies of Wasteland in his list.
Looks like just one for him this
just
weekend.
one?
Yeah, he typically has 1 a crop rotation for.
I think he has 1 in the sideboard as well.
That he does. Here's a Ponder for Ball.
Pretty important for Ball here to find a fetch land. That way he can pair it with the Brainstorm in hand and shuffle away that Batterskull, maybe even the copy of Jace that might be a bit slow for this setup.
Ross going to very quickly sacrifice that Verdant Catacombs. He'll fall down to 17. Tropical Island number 2. And now here's a Green Sun Zenith. Also a 1-of here for Tom. He's got some funky 1-ofs, but there's a Force of Will to take care of that. Going to remove the Jace the Mind Sculptor. Remember, that was Ball's draw. Tom thought he'd be good to go to have this resolved. Now Tom's looking at that daze saying, I need an Infect threat, so he's going to daze it. Now Zenith will resolve, and we'll see Tom grab what is likely a Glistener Elf.
Dazing a Force of Will has to be among the best feelings in Legacy.
Can't be too bad.
I have to guess.
Caracas appears to be land number 2 here for Ball, though he's reconsidering his options at this point. He will go with Caracas. Now past the turn back. Ross will draw. Noble Hierarch is what he's found.
I think Noble Hierarch's probably a very good draw here for Thomas. He kind of likes to slowly but steadily add to his board here. He doesn't want to go crazy trying to pump all in one turn against a player with open mana up and counter spells at the ready. So an Exalted Threat, some more mana to work with. It's not a bad draw.
Terminus is the top card. And that's going to get the job done.
And Tom, knowing about Pyroblast in hand, cannot fight over it.
Mm-hmm. Now here's a Brainstorm for Ball. Tom does have Force of Will and a blue card. That blue card is Piracy Charm, but as you mentioned, the Pyroblast in hand is stopping him from having a productive fight. Ball done resolving Brainstorm. He'll play a Scalding Tarn. That's a fetch land to go along with the powerful blue card drawer. Now we head back Ross's way. Blighted Agent is the draw. He'll attempt to deploy that. But it appears as though Ball may have that Pyroblast still in hand. He'll very quickly shuffle the Scalding Tarn.
But at least now Ross can push this through. On the previous turn, he knew that he would lose the fight if he tried to Force of Will the Terminus, with Ball having that mana available. But now, with Ball only having Pyroblast, one assumes, he can Force of Will back, get a threat on the table.
And some funky mana here for Ball, too. Caracas and 2 copies of Volcanic Island. so it doesn't even have access to double white at this point. You don't see that very often with Miracles. And it looks like the Blight Agent is just going to resolve. There is an island. There is a Pyroblast. Tom's going to have to fight over this. He's got Force Will removing Piracy Charm. We'll see if this resolves.
It is a secret weakness of Miracles. The mana base isn't that good. Once you go to a third color, because you want to play with a lot of basic lands, you need to make your land drops, and you're worried about getting hit with Wasteland and such. And you have some pretty demanding mana requirements. You have double white spells, you have counterbalance you're trying to play on turn 2. You've got the red cards as well.
We got a Vendilion Click in the draw step here. And now, that was favorable. Tom had 2 Vines of the Vastwoods, but his draw for the turn before the click resolve was an Invigorate, so he's able to play Vines first while Ball's tapped out, doesn't believe he has Force of Will, and then is able to cast Invigorate for the alternate casting cost. That's going to be lethal, and that'll get the job done there for the boss. So, Tom Ross up a game here over Benjamin Ball. In fact, very quickly up a game over Miracles as we get ready for game number 2. We will take a look at the sideboards here for both players. We will start with Ball, and he's got a Terminus, 2 copies of Wear Tear, 2 Blood Moons, 2 Rest in Peace, 2 Meddling Mage, 2 Containment Priest, 2 Flusterstorm, another copy of Pyroblast, and a Venser, Shaper Savant.
So I really like having another Pyroblast here. The extra copy of Terminus is great. I like 2 copies of Flusterstorm. Ross has a bunch of counter spells, and he's trying to go off with a flurry of pump spells. And I think the 2 copies of Wear Tear, they're a little bit narrow, but Ball needs to shore up his weakness to Inkmon Nexus. And I'm happy just to have a couple Shatter effects in the deck to make it more reliable to kill that thing.
On Tom's side, you're going to see a lot of one-ofs here in Karakas, Flusterstorm, Hydroblast, Necropede, Force of Will, Viridian Corruptor, Surgical Extraction, Nature's Claim, Crozing Grip, Crop Rotation, Bajuka Bog, Wasteland, Spellskite, and then 2 copies of Submerge.
I think you can bring in the extra copy of Wasteland here, the additional copy of Spellskite. I think the 1 copy of Flusterstorm is fine in this matchup. I don't mind the Karakas here as a way to clear out Vendilion Click. I know it's a little awkward to bounce Vendilion Click, but any attempt from Ball to block Ross is, happy to have more answers. And this is a matchup where I think Ross may want the additional copy of Force of Will as well. A lot of critical cards to fight over: Sensei's Divine Top, Counterbalance, and Terminus.
Well, at least for Tommy, he doesn't have to worry about the old Peacekeeper.
No.
The Reed Duke special from the Players' Championship. That was certainly fun to watch.
Ross still has his Piracy Charm. And
that's true.
He may leave it in as a hedge.
Okay.
I would not rule out.
It's modal.
And you can kill Vendilion Click with it.
Also
so
true.
It's not the end of the world, but Ross may leave in that Piracy Charm out of respect for Peacekeeper, which is one of the best ways in Legacy to cheat this matchup. If you are looking to not fight fair against Infect, that's the card to go to.
Well, those are the options there for both players. They'll sideboard shuffle up. Benjamin Ball will be on the play for game number 2. In the meantime, we're talking SCG Game Night, the very popular promotion that you can have at your local store today. We got hippos here for the month of October. We got some new stuff for November and December.
Yeah, we have all the kits announced for the rest of the year. You can head over to StarCityGames.com/Game Night for more information. Every month we send out new kits with pins and tokens. Stores can run Game Night however they want to, any day of the week, sanctioned or unsanctioned. Just get players in the store for some fun and friendly magic. This is the October kit. You're running out of time to get it, but November coming right down the pipeline. You see the otter here. If you want to get signed up for December, which is the reindeer, again, head over to StarCityGames.com/Game Night for more information, or contact your Star City Games in-store play representative. Also, Canadian players, please be aware that we have changed the shipping rates. You'll now be charged the same domestic shipping that American stores are. So if your store has not brought Game Night to its store out of concerns for the shipping costs, that's been changed.
Game number 2 about to be underway. In fact, Miracles is how we start our day here. Tom Ross, of course, a fantastic player in the Open Series with 6 Open Series top 8s, back-to-back invitational wins last year as well. 2015 hasn't been as good as a year for Tom, but it's also hard to top 2014.
Well, I think he's starting to get in the groove a little bit. He's playing more Magic in the last couple months and has had better results. I do think that early on this year, he was resting on his laurels a little bit. Now Tom going at half speed is still a lot better than most people in the room.
Yep.
So he was still winning at a reasonable clip. But as you mentioned, not the same way that he was in 2014, where he had a dominant run in Grand Prix. He won 2 invitationals in a row. But I feel like we're starting to see the Tom Ross from last year come back a little bit.
And, Tom is kind of a specialist in the decks that he plays. And, he did do some innovating this year. Not as much as last year with the Boss Live variants and Infect, but we saw him kind of put Ban Heroic on the map.
Yep.
When we were in Syracuse much earlier this year. A pretty dominant performance there. And now he's back at it with what he knows very well in Infect. He doesn't have really, I think at this point, that standard weapon of choice right now, like he did previously.
Well, part of the problem is there's no red deck or super aggressive deck that he feels that people are unprepared for. I mean, you know, you point at decks like Ban Heroic, the Boss Sly builds. These were popular at times where people weren't really playing these decks or respecting those cards. And Standard doesn't really have that analog right now. There's no red deck you can go to that people are unexpected for, or some weird angle of attack, because the red deck is one of the better, more popular decks in Standard.
Yeah. Underway here in game number 2. Ball will start off with a Flooded Strand. Ross has got a Tropical Island. He'll just pass the turn back. An island is where Ball might go, but he'll go with a Flooded Strand instead. He'll just pass the turn back. Ross picks up another copy of Misty Rainforest. And he'll sacrifice the Misty. So down to 19 he goes. And there's a basic forest. And it looks like it's time for the Zenith again. That's going to buy out a Force of Will. Notable. Force of Will removing Force of Will.
Well, Ball has been very aggressive about trying to fight over anything that gets an Infect creature on the table, as well he should. The fact that it's Force of Will here instead of something like Spell Pierce or even Counterspell indicates that there's not a lot of defense in his hand. He would likely have just used something like Swords to Plowshares if that was an option.
Ball will sacrifice both of those Flooded Strands. He'll fall down to 17 now.
Also noteworthy that he was willing to pitch a second copy of Force of Will. All the evidence there from that play suggests that Ball has a pretty soft hand, if that was the only way he could interact with a Green Sun Zenith.
Well, Ball will draw. Picked up a copy of Scalding Tarn, and he'll sacrifice that. So down to 16 he goes. Remember, a much more aggressive slant to his deck this weekend. Yes, he does have Counterbalance and Sensei's Divine Top. Yes, he's got Terminus, so he's got a little bit of Miracle Engine. He does have Jace to control the game, but he's got 3 Monastery Mentors, 3 Stoneforge Mystics, and 2 Vendilion Clicks.
And it's interesting. If I was playing in a Magic Online tournament, I would not want to do this because I just prefer the creature-like builds. But in a physical tournament where time's more of a concern, that might tilt it in this favor.
This is a Blood Moon. A very powerful card against Infect. However, we saw Tom quickly search up a basic forest this game, where many times we've seen him just search out Trops, so perhaps he knew that Blood Moon was coming.
He knows it's a possibility. I mean, the red splash here, as you see, Tom a little bit frustrated here. Force of Will's the Blood Moon and then immediately draws Nature's Claim. I wish he could take the Force of Will back.
I suppose he can just shuffle away the Nature's Claim now. He is brainstorming now. So 3 cards drawn, 2 will have to go back.
Blood Moon can definitely have its moments of being good against Infect, and this is one of the games where, you know, Tom draws a little on the slow side. Ball was able to fend off the first Infect creature by countering the Green Sun Zenith, but you can also cast it and not get to untap. That's going to happen not infrequently as well.
We'll see exactly what Tom wants to do with this brainstorm here in a moment. Never an easy card to resolve. Does kind of set the stage for the rest of the game, especially if the fetch land is involved.
And especially with a deck like Infect, because it's not as simple as, all right, what are the 2 worst cards in my hand? He needs a mixture of a lot of stuff. He needs threat cards, he needs some pump spells, he needs ways to defend his creatures or the proactive plays that Ball can make. So brainstorms in decks like this is quite complicated.
He might be thinking he wants another copy of Nature's Claim too for maybe another Blood Moon that might follow up or a counterbalance. Who knows? For now, though, he's going to go with Noble Hierarch after playing Misty Rainforest, and he'll pass the turn back.
Well, Noble Hierarch means he has to care a lot less about a follow-up Blood Moon because now he has access to blue mana.
Here's a Monastery Mentor. And Ball will just pass the turn back. Ross will untap. Will he crack the fetch land? Remember, he's already put 2 cards back from Brainstorm, so he wants to draw one of them. It's another copy of Brainstorm. Hierarch will allow him to cast another Brainstorm, so he knows what the first card is. That was an Invigorate. He added a Noble Hierarch and a Blighted Agent. Looks like he's going to let that Nature's Claim go now.
And Ross showing a lot of patience with that Misty Rainforest, which is very good in this spot. The cards he's drawing here may be the things that he ultimately wants. So he's just putting back what appears to be the 2 worst cards, but not necessarily being in a rush to shuffle away because they might be better than a random draw.
Sensei's Divining Top here for Ball. This is kind of the combo with Monastery Mentor. You can really go nuts with making Jacob Wilson Monk tokens. Of course, Wilson, our Season 1 Invitational Champion. We'll see him later this year at the Players' Championship.
Yeah, Ross now has to get a move on because it does not take long for Ball to generate a lethal board with this setup.
Yep. Gonna draw a card with top. And it's gonna get quicker now.
Now this is the combo.
Yep.
This means that for a mana, with a top on top of his deck and a top in play, for 1 mana, he can get a Monk and a Prowess trigger. So this kills very quickly.
Let's see what's next here for Ball. He's going to play a Scalding Tarn. Yep, he's going to do it again. Another Monk on the way. And this Mentor's pretty big here. It's a 5/5 coming into the red zone.
I mean, this is lethal next turn.
Yep.
Every mana is worth +4/+4. So that's 16, 18. Yeah, this is lethal next turn.
Yep. This combo is no joke. Let's see what Ross wants to do on the upkeep, because Ross right now has a copy of Invigorate in hand, so you can feel that he might want to try to go for it here.
Well, he's going to die next turn, and Ball's hand probably does not have a lot to protect himself. So this seems like a good spot to go for it, and this is why Ross is now shuffling. The calculus has changed. It looked like he was playing a slower game before and had some time to sculpt a better hand, but now with Monastery Mentor and 2 Sensei's Divine Tops, he just has to go for it this turn.
Well, it's time to draw a card. I believe he picked up a copy of Choke?
A Sylvan Library.
Sylvan Library, okay. Here's a Brainstorm. He'll draw 3, Misty Rainforest, Invigorate, and Vines of the Vastwood. You see an approving head nod there.
Well, I mean, he gets to now attack for lethal with Vines backup against 1 card in hand.
Yep.
Not a bad spot to be.
Here's an Invigorate. He'll attack. Another Invigorate. Ball looking at a Flusterstorm. You would think that would be good enough. I would certainly feel safe if I was Ball with a Flusterstorm as my last card, but Tom found enough pump spells off that Brainstorm to be able to go over the top here. Yep, and there, now there's the Vines. So 2+4+4s, that's 8. 1 base power from Blighted Agent, and then 1 from the Noble Hierarch. And that'll be exactly enough to get it done here, it appears. And it's all unblockable, of course.
Yes.
He'll draw a card with Sensei's Divining Top. That's not going to help him. Tom Ross is going to win this match over Benjamin Ball, 2-0. Infect will take down Miracles for the boss. It's another W, and he moves on to 9-1.